all of us should feel great every single day. And I don't think that needs to take more than 5 minutes. And that's the product we built. The belief that somebody is just stuck with a physical limitation because they're aging blows my mind.
Yeah.
So that's where we're like, okay, we have something here. We have a product that, we believe is going to make a big, big impact in this world.
What's up, fitness fans? Welcome back to the Future of Fitness podcast and interview series. This is your host, Eric Malzone, and we're on episode 137. I talked to Aaron DeJong. So Aaron is out of Vancouver. If you haven't been to Vancouver, it's a really, really cool place. Fast growing, modern, multicultural, hip, great food, all of that. But I can ramble on about Vancouver. I just really like it, and Victoria too. We talked about that during the interview and my love for Victoria. So what about Aaron? Well, Aaron is a fitness professional, of course. I met him through Elite Gym Insiders. And we chatted a little bit, and I realized that there was, a great story there. So we hopped on a call, and here we are doing an interview. So successful gym owner in Vancouver. The way he talks about the way he's built his business and his story there and how he got into the fitness industry. And now he's taking his stab at technology with the Movr App, Movr. So to me, the biggest opportunity that we have as fitness and health professionals utilizing technology is the ability to get to the other 99% of the world's population that do not have gym memberships or go to the gym. And that's exactly what Aaron's doing. And he's producing a system that will help people move better, feel better, get out of states of pain, and do it in a very short amount of time every day. So it's a great way to essentially just instill healthy habits in people, allow them to move better and longer in their lives. So it's a great story. I hope you enjoy it. Before we get into the interview, let's talk about Elite Gym Insiders. So like people like Aaron, right? Just met Aaron in there. He came in, he asked me a few questions within the Slack community, and here we are. And if you are a gym owner, anybody who wants to work with gym owners or just a general fitness professional, go check it out, elitegyminsiders.com. There's a short application. Like I said, it's a free group. And, we will be offering to our members a lot of great things, discounts on digital marketing services, mentorship, CRMs, education, supplements, equipment, all of that. So it behooves you to get in there and check it out and be active and really engage in the community because it's a great one. So on top of that, check out certifiedcoursecreation.com. So we are creating online accredited certifications for people with a great expertise. So perhaps you have a certification in you. You have something that you need to get out into the world, right? You just don't know how. You don't know where to start. What software do you use? How do you put it together? How do you edit it? What kind of annotations and citations do you need? Do you need a scientific writer? All those things, don't worry about that. We take care of all of that. We partner with you and we create a beautiful and lucrative online accredited certification. So go check it out at certifiedcoursecreation.com. And without further ado, let's get into it. Number 137, Aaron DeJong. Enjoy the show. All right, and we're live. Aaron, welcome to the Future of Fitness, man.
Very, very excited to be here. This is very cool. Like I just said, a relative first, a podcast.
Yeah, well, many more to come, I have no doubt. And God, I mean, there's so many things that we talked about that were really great before recording. That's the way it always goes, right? I joke about it all the time. It's like, you guys missed all the great conversation right before we started recording. But we'll get into a lot of it because it's really powerful stuff. And it's not just what you've done with your fitness business and your life and the application that you're developing, and but the storyline behind it and the little things that got to where you are. So let's start with your story, man. Give us some background on what you do and kind of how you got there.
Cool, man. I mean, I'll give the sort of the meatiest version in as concise words as possible. So, well, my name's Aaron DeJong, and I live here in Vancouver, Canada. And I'm from a family of four. There's four boys, and we're all my size, which is 6'5", over 200 pounds. We all played sports, and we're very active in all this stuff. So I grew up playing sports, never anything that was like crazy high level, but always, running around and chasing basketballs or soccer balls, whatever, and then wrestling with my brothers. moving forward, I think really quickly as I got older, I got connected to being active in a very recreational way and across as many sort of different activities, whether that be like, kayaking trips or hiking or soccer, playing a little bit more competitive, to then going to university to become a PE teacher. So I went to university for 5 years in Victoria, and we, by we, I mean me, came out of school having some experience working in an athletic therapy clinic, having taught a bunch of students at high schools during different practical experiences, and getting a lot of time at the actual university gym, training myself, but also being a personal trainer for 2 years. Very hands off, very much more of a gym facilitator, and seeing what people were doing in the gym space, and then myself practicing that as well, and not connecting the dots that at the time that was also the most injured I've ever been in my life. And so that was like the starting of this environment of I'd been active. I worked in a gym and I saw what people were up to. I was injured and I was learning how to educate people in physical activity. So that's kind of like the birthplace of all these different worlds I'm now totally immersed in. And now fast forward, I mean, like 7 years, what happened was I came out of university, and I'm fortunate that my brother was dating a woman who was a personal trainer, and she was in many ways way ahead of the curve. She was looking at a lot of functional movement system stuff. She was doing a lot of kettlebell training, and she kind of just pushed me in the right direction of, hey, if you're going to be a personal trainer, or if you want to do this on the side, here are the ways in which you should go educate yourself. Here's like the most functional way that you could help people. And man, and that started me down a road that was like, when you get interested in something where it's like a forward momentum that you can just kind of get caught up in and you can't stop reading stuff. That was it, man. It was like 2012, 2013 was the time that I started leaning into that sort of functional movement system stuff. And on the other side, realizing that teaching wasn't my best environment that I felt professionally satisfied in. So that culminated with me ending up opening up a personal training studio in 2014. 5 years later, we're gone from myself in a 200 square foot space to there's 12 trainers, and we've got up to 3,000 square feet now. Personal training classes. We have a really cool model of how we intake people into, we call it like movement-based strength training. So it's a lot of like continually program flows that are a lot of mobility-based stuff built with strength. And then it's called Movement 108. It's here in Vancouver. And then 3 years ago from that model started an app called Movr. And, we've been in the store for 2 years and now heading for a major launch in partnership with Lululemon this summer in July. So that's like the high level. And then that's kind of like what I'm up to. On the other side of it, I'm getting married in 5 weeks to the love of my life, which is really amazing. I'm very, very excited about that. And I'm a guy who's just like loves still to be active, and I feel the most passionate about what I do when I can help facilitate people in feeling better in their body as fast as possible. And that's what I'm all about, man.
I love it. So one of my first questions, how did you like going to school in Victoria? Because that's one of my wife and I's favorite cities.
Cool. Man, what's so funny is I'm from a really small town. So when I have 2 older brothers. I'm one of the middle child, and my oldest brother went to UBC, which is in Vancouver. Vancouver in Canada is a huge city,
It's big for any standard. Yeah.
Yeah. So and for me from a small town, it was like, that was an option. And I remember coming to the city just like, man, this is too big for me. I'm too overwhelmed. I'm intimidated. So I just didn't want to go to UBC. And then I visited my brother who went to UVic. And I just fell in love with it. Victoria has got this charm. It's beautiful, man. I lived there for 5 years, and it was some of the best 5 years of my life for sure. Made some of my best friends. And really it was like, I look back and it's like where all the the events and the key pieces of life kind of happened that I now look back on. I'm like, oh yeah, that mattered. The program I was in mattered, and that relationship mattered, and
Yeah.
So, and the space, man, I encourage anybody to go visit. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I remember the first time my wife and I took the ferry from whatever it is near Seattle, whatever port that is, and then we came through the harbor into, and I was like, oh my God, where am I? It's like a mixture of like old England and
totally.
Like this, it was amazing, and every time we spent a couple months there, really enjoyed our time. And it's got great food, it's got culture, and it's not that crowded.
No, it's not that crowded. It's so funny, man, because it's kind of like we're spoiled with our blessings. In the summertime, it gets super busy, and you go to catch a ferry, and you'll miss a ferry or two, so you got to wait 2 hours. So as a local, you'll complain about having to miss a ferry. And meanwhile, you're sitting next to like the sparkling ocean, mountains on every side. There's islands, there's wildlife. Like there's these amazing restaurants. You're like, oh, like the ferries are so bad. It's like, we live in just an incredible part of the world,
Yeah. And all the islands there, we spent, another 2 months in Pender Island, and having to take the ferries everywhere. What a unique way of life. And, people, and that was the thing that all the locals were bitching about. Ferries, right? God, this is awful. And I'm like, really? Like, this ferry is like the best thing ever. I could do this.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Totally, man. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Victoria's great. It was really amazing. And for us too, it gives you all those things that a big city can give you, but with literally like 1/10 of the crowd.
Yeah.
Really easy.
Totally.
So
it was definitely the place for me that I was able to transition from a small town. Like I grew up in a town of 10,000 people, and then in Victoria there's like 300,000 people in the school there, and then that allowed me to be ready for the city of Vancouver, which I moved here 8 years ago and haven't really looked back. So
yeah, and what's going on in Vancouver, man? That place is just
it's bananas here, man. Across, I think, all industries, like everywhere you look, there's new construction. The city is growing up, so there's not really much expansion outwards, but every building is just getting taller. The livability cost is really challenging for a lot of people. I think it's also just in transition from this place where a generation before us was able to buy a home or buy a condo and be like, yeah, this is part of the expectation of growing up in the city. And now that's just not becoming realistic. It's like people are transitioning into being like a renter because there's just a lot of influx of people, money, and industry in the city. It's pretty wild. And it's also on with that, those life stresses. There's some cool stuff happening. There's like the fitness industry is alive in Vancouver. There's so much innovation. There's a lot of people doing different conceptual stuff in studios. Lululemon's head office is here, so they've got such a pulse in the city. It's a pretty fun place to live, man. And we have the playground of the mountains and the ocean right here.
It's a crazy cool place. The whole area is amazing, and I know a big discussion too that happens when I talk to people up there is whether or not they're going to build a bridge from Vancouver to Vancouver Island, and I hope that never happens.
I hope it never happens. That would be a monster project, but who knows? Anything is possible, man.
Yeah. So anyway, if people haven't figured it out yet, we're fans of British.
Yeah. That's what this podcast is about. It's just a geographical. Yeah.
It's so cool.
Talk about
and for me, being here, and we like to dive into urban metropolitan areas when we can and soak up the culture and then get back out to the mountains. It's so perfect. But we can talk about that all day, but we won't. Let's talk about your development, man. We're definitely going to talk about your app because it's really cool. I mean, that's one of the things we talked weeks ago. I was like, wow, that's just a really cool concept. And the fact that Lulu jumped on it is going to help you launch. That's tremendous. So obviously you have a concept there, but talk about your development up until this point, because there's interesting things we talked about before.
Mm-hmm. When I talk to people about how I built out my first business, which was my studio, it's really easy to see bricks and mortar and a big team, and people be like, wow, success. Like, way to go. You must have everything figured out. And really, I feel like a guy who never has a single thing figured out, but we're just pushing in one direction forward. And the way that started was working through a bunch of my own stuff. When I opened up in 2014, I'd started seeing, I went through a number of things. One was in 2007, I was actually in a house fire that two of my friends passed away. And at that time, I was introduced to a therapist, and I saw him briefly for a couple months and then stopped seeing him and went through university after that. And at the end of university in the spring, I think, or the January of 2012, my long-term girlfriend and I broke up, and I was just in a really sad, exploratory place of like, what's this all about? Where am I heading? I'm done school. I'm like, this relationship of 5 years is over. So I went back to that same therapist, and there was a chunk of work, personal development work, moving into a new city in that time, and the big sort of everything happened in 2014. I'd come back from working abroad, and I had the opportunity to open up a studio space. And with that, I started asking myself questions like, am I like, it sounds cheesy, but it's like, am I worthy of opening up a business? Who would come? Why would people show up? What is this thing that I would offer? I don't know anything. All these things that really a lot of self-doubt. So I really leaned into the sort of therapeutic side. And then also I got a business coach. And between the two of them, I started seeing that really the only limiter across all the things in my life was myself. But sort of like the common denominator. And learning to learn about how I think, and then B, learn about the business world. I was like, if I go out and I can learn to communicate clearly, to discern what other people's intentions are clearly, I mean, there's no reason why I can't open up a space and be passionate about the thing I'm doing. So that was my own sort of like initial part of that. And so I opened up the studio space, and it was a 250 square foot space. And there was a stairwell in it. So it was like 200 feet of trainable space. You think about that, that's small, man. So like I had my one-to-one clients, and we did like 4 to 5 person classes in there. And really quickly I got really busy. It was like, I was next to a spin studio that was super supportive. I was a Lululemon ambassador, so they were pushing people my way through their store and the head office. Word of mouth started traveling around. And the next piece of development, which I found so interesting, is I got busy enough that I needed to bring on 1 or 2 more people. And I got terrified that they were going to come in and change the business model, or that I was going to have to no longer be open-minded or clear about my thinking or intentions or communication. And so there was another step there where I was like, a requirement to working here is that you have to go through your own personal goals coaching, and we have to get on a communications model that we can interact regularly, not only as like friends on a friend level, but in a very professional communication base where there's expectations and accountability and follow-up, and that was terrifying. And that was the pivot point of me going out and doing, it was called I Goal You at the time, this goals coaching system for 4 months, and asking these 3 people to do it with me. And I was blown away when the 3 of them said yes, they'd do it. And by the end of the 4 months, we had this like incredible awareness of what people's personal goals were, some of the things they've been through, and where they wanted to go. And it allowed us to really collaborate with our direction of training. And 2 of those people I still continue to work with, So those pivotal 6 months in 2014, man, kind of set the course for not only like my own personal development, but the continual growth of the other coworkers. And that just like trickles down into the entire community of any client that I've interacted with, and future employees or contractors or future clients. And it's been quite an amazing growth of this thing that I could never have expected,
Facility owners are certainly one thing. It's a great example just to talk about for context here. But, the most successful facility owners I know always have a really, really strong focus on people. they focus on their staff and the development of them from all aspects, right? Not just, hey, what's your knowledge base? Do you know how to do reps, sets, and rest, right? But it's the whole thing about how you communicate with people, how you form bonds, understand, their challenges and empathize and all of those things. That's universal in life and business, right? And I think, if you can really focus on those skills, I'm a huge personal development guy. I'm constantly reading books about personal development and working on a daily basis. People knew my morning routine, which I've talked about a couple of times on the show. It's pretty wild, and it works for me, right? Because that's that I need to get focused and centered and kind of reprogram the things that have been programmed in over decades. And that it's such a huge component. And unfortunately, a lot of that deep work that people have to do, there's usually has to be a catalyst for it. It's not.
Well, I totally agree. And usually that catalyst is something like that's tough, right?
It's pain.
Yeah, it's pain. It's totally pain. Yeah.
So it's, and I think, maybe if there's like people who are listening out there right now, like going through a really shitty time, know that this could be your catalyst and that you'll get through it, right? I mean, all things pass, right? With time, you'll get through it. This could be your moment to really start doing some deep work and changing the way that you just, your wiring is configured, and how you approach people, and everything will change after that point.
Man, and I think on that note, I think that one of the most empowering learnings that I had is I always felt so vulnerable or insecure in moments where I was going to share something that I was struggling with or I hadn't figured out yet, And in doing so, in the right environment or around somebody that I thought I could trust or just somebody who was like, I think I got to chat with this person. When I would open up and talk about those things, instead of ever feeling ridiculed or judged, there was always like the person being able to talk about their own stuff. So it was this like positive feedback loop of, oh yeah, we both don't have stuff sorted out. So let's talk about that, and it's quite simple when you say it, but like the actual, our barriers, our ego barriers are so structured and hard to get past sometimes.
Yeah. I had a conversation this week, and this recording will happen, a month or release a month after this, but it was this guy, one of the best digital marketers in the world. Right.
Yeah.
Just like you look at him, you're like, this guy has got it nailed. And, and then you start talking to him. It's the same problems, right? Same problems everybody faces, just on a different level in that area of his life.
Totally.
So always something you can relate to with people. Don't think because, Josh Hillos is on the show too, and he's going to be back on, for listeners, he'll be back on sometime in the next few months. But maybe my favorite line of anybody on all of these 130 something podcasts is like, he's like, just remember, you're probably only better than your clients at one or two things. That's it. Like they're probably better at everything else. And it's like that mindset that you go into. And I think you can reflect that, in a mirror upon everybody else that you work with. Is like, they're probably really, really good at one or two things. And then they're hot, just like everybody else and all the other
totally.
Right. And I think that's what makes us human. And when you think about it that way too, it makes everybody very approachable and realizing that no matter what it is, if you're good at those one or two things, you can help everybody else, but you also have to be open to the fact that you need a lot of work on all the other stuff too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Similarly, man, like it's just so funny. The two things that I always think about, one is there's a guy that I've worked with for the last 4 years at the studio. And he's just a very approachable, grounded guy. And I remember asking him after knowing him about 6 months, I'm like, so dude, like, how do you hold so much space for people? How are you so approachable? He's like, I just, like 10 years ago, I just realized like everyone's just a big baby. Everyone's just like, all I see is a big baby. No matter how bossy they make themselves look, they're just a big baby. And so I really like that one because it's very like, oh, you're like, yeah. And then the other one that makes me laugh is similar context. It's like, if you're ever intimidating yourself with someone or you're in a meeting and someone's kind of got this decision or power of authority in the meeting, and then you just remember that they have to shit too. You're like,
right.
Oh, you make a bathroom stinky. All right. Okay. Do it.
Yeah, that is awesome. That's great. So tell me, man, let's talk about your app. Like what's the concept of what you're doing with your app?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So before I opened the studio, I worked in a gym, and the gym was a space where trainers could rent out space and then bring their clients in. And it was probably anywhere up to like 20 to 40 trainers and clients in there at any one time. Everyone was doing different stuff. I didn't really know what was good and what wasn't. And everyone was like, it was like you just said, it was like sets, reps, timed rest, and then go again. And the gap that I was like missing was, how are people feeling? You know, how are people actually feeling like in the moment in their body? Are they doing a deadlift and there's like tension in their back, or like, do they have a neck thing or whatever else? And I didn't have interest ever. And I haven't had interest to be a manual therapist or go into physical therapy type stuff. So that's when I mentioned the FMS, functional movement systems. I remember going to my second workshop with them, their corrective exercise one, and seeing the facilitator do some stuff with people where he would see something, a dysfunction, and then do one exercise or do one movement with no hands-on stuff. And then they'd go and repeat the same exercise, and it would be fundamentally different. And I was like, what the hell just happened? Like, what did he just do? That guy's magic, right? So that's when like I was insatiable. I was like, so something's happening with the brain. We're changing the relationship with the brain. Something's happening on the physical. So like there's like now like a restriction that was there that is now enabled to move around. So maybe you braced your core so your back could open up or whatever the thing is. And then the person now has the opportunity to move differently. And typically that would enable someone to feel better. That was a big learning for me 5 years ago. I opened up the studio and tried to apply the FMS principles into my coaching with clients and people who were there as quickly as I could. And the cool thing was within 6 months, people were just moving better. And the studio was packed, and I did zero advertising, you know? So it was like people were bringing their parents, people were bringing their friends. Like there was no age restriction to the studio, like 20-year-olds. And there's a guy who still trains with us. He's like late 60s, you know, like, and we're not, you know, doing anything except fundamental movements. We're moving in all different movement patterns, you know, your squats, your lunges, your hinges, but we're getting people into them really intelligently. So that was the studio. And I was like, okay, something's here. I want to help as many people as possible. I'd been in the classroom with kids. I'd seen how like dysfunctionally students in their teens were moving. I was like, man, these adults, they then turn into adults and just sit. So like, how do we get to as many people as possible? And it wasn't going to be from me opening up more studios, because I'm not that guy. I don't want to manage more than one space. So through a friend of a friend, I put out like a Facebook ad and met a developer. And this isn't anything to do with what the app does, but I find the story so interesting. It was one of those moments where I was in my pajamas on a Sunday, and I got this phone number for a developer. I'd already met with two, and they were both duds. And I was like, okay, I got this idea. I need to talk to somebody who's great. And I messaged this guy, I'm like, hey, I just got your phone number from a friend. Are you able to meet and talk about this like fitness app or exercise app? And he's like, I can either meet right now or in 3 weeks. I'm like driving to the airport for a trip to Mexico. Like, let's meet right now. So we met at a coffee shop, and 2 hours later we walked out like on napkins, our first concept of a digital product, you know? And so he's my co-founder. And it was just an incredible first, oh my gosh, this thing has legs. And essentially what the app does is it puts movement into a system. So we call it the 3x5x7 model. And it's the most technical I'll get, but essentially our bodies move in 3 ranges of motion. We can rotate, we can move side to side, and we can move forward and back, flexion, extension, whatever you want to call it. And every part of our body to a degree has to move in that way. Even our knees, even our elbows, they got to rotate a little bit, all that stuff. And within that, the 5 part is the 5 movement patterns. And there's some speculation that you could add carries and stuff, but we call it the push, the pull, the hinge, the squat, and the lunge. And I believe that every single exercise under the sun exists in those 3 ranges of motion within those 5 movement patterns. So looking at that, I was like, okay, I can put these tags on exercises as, oh, this is a rotational lunge, or this is like, a squat with a push at the top, whatever. And we wanted to create a leveling system. So we said, okay, level 1, anybody can do. Like my grandma can do. Anybody with any mobility dysfunction could do. And so that would be something like lying on your back and pulling your knees to your chest. We're like, okay, if you can do that, that's step 1 to you standing and squatting, because that's the least stress on your body. And then level 7 being like the fully loaded, you've got, 2 kettlebells, you've got a barbell, and you're doing a snatch to a squat to a overhead press, whatever you want to call it, super loaded up. You have to have all your systems running on go to be able to do. And so we created a system where we could put information in about somebody's profile, and then it would just spit out workouts. And we would categorize it where you'd have about 5 to 10 minutes of really low level activities. And then you'd get a little bit more challenging, so the activation. And then the big meat part of it, which would be your exertion part. And then at the end, we'd reopen your body up in all the ranges of motion that you moved. And that's what we were doing at the studio. And that was the original concept of the app. And we got super excited about it and spent 2.5 years building it. We launched, it was in the store 2017. It was super fun naming it, designing it, going through like the, startup funding. My parents gave me $50,000, on a total whim. Like I asked my dad a couple months ago, I'm like, so did you know what you were investing in? He's like, oh, we have no clue. He's like, we still don't know. Like you seemed really passionate about it. I trusted that. I was like, okay, thank you. Because no one else really had a clue. But and the cool thing was, man, it's like it did what we wanted it to do. The problem was the product wasn't customizing information to people based on their inputs. It was all about us making assumptions about how someone should be moving. So really we were like, oh, we're just kind of doing what everyone else is doing. And all the other apps in the space at the time were just prescribing really hard stuff. They were all working in that higher range of like nervous system stress stuff. So it was all very heavily loaded, a lot of jump stuff, like really selling sweat and not thinking about how does someone feel and are they moving better. So about a year ago, we just shifted gears completely and we said, okay, the workouts are available anywhere. Yes, somebody can use our app to work out, but we're way more interested in putting someone into some corrective opportunity, some opportunity to unlock something. So we built something called our body analysis, and it's 10 movements that we screen, or the user screens. They come into the app and they get asked to do a very simple thing like touch your toes, or lie on your back and do what we call a side reach and just see what your thoracic mobility is like. And based on how it moves, you get a score from 1 to 5. And we built this super cool engine where it then takes all of your inputs and gives you your biggest area of opportunity to improve. And we prescribe a 5-minute, what we call a mini. So the mini just is 2 to 3 exercises or movements that will improve the thing that didn't go very well. So if you like, I hope that you and I get the opportunity to hang out in the flesh and I can check out your body analysis score and be like, oh man, Eric, like this moves well, this moves well. I don't need to do anything with your shoulders. This is great. But when you go to touch your toes, like your hands are dangling at your shins. Let's do 3 things to open that up and retest it. And what typically happens is there's either a greater range of motion that's improved, or if the range of motion doesn't change significantly, the feeling of getting to that same range of motion for the person improves. So that's what we talk about in terms of like moving better. We're like, man, it should feel good to move our bodies. And unless you've been in a car accident and have pins sticking out of bones, like all of us should feel great every single day. And I don't think that needs to take more than 5 minutes. And that's the product we built. And that's where it is right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great concept. And that's the power of 5 minutes a day, if done routinely, is incredible. People
Dude.
like, even if like, okay, well, I don't read a book, right? We'll read 5 minutes a day, every day, and see what happens. Like that's, anything for 5 minutes a day is incredible. And it's so understated at what that can do.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have talked about Max Schenk, who's been on this show a couple times as well. And his 5 minute flow is a very similar goal. Is like, if you can just get people to move 5 minutes every morning and then drink 2 glasses of water first thing in the morning, what that major impact that has on overall health and everything, longevity, enjoyment of life, healthcare costs, like 5 minutes a day, right? And it's very similar to your path. And so with this particular app, like who do you tend to be, who's gravitating towards this? Like, who is it for the most part?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think so. I have a tendency to talk a lot, so cut me off, man. But I'll kind of take the longer road to answer the question, because we originally made our app. It was designed by millennials. I'm a millennial,
Mm-hmm.
and we made it very moody, edgy, dark feature set. And we thought, okay, 20-somethings are going to love this product. But the 20-somethings don't have necessarily big problems that they're looking to solve. They have a bit of extra time. They can go sweat all they want and not necessarily feel the aches and kinks that somebody who's working and has kids and doesn't have a lot of time and isn't sleeping very much are going to experience. And so, like we were saying before, like, we're targeting anybody that has gone through feeling a bit crappy, and they have to realize a problem to then want to go solve it. And it's like, human beings are so smart, but we're so bad at preventative actions, right? So when we boil that down, like, who is aware of their problems and who is looking for the 5-minute solve, for our target demographic, it was between 32 and early 40s, the person who has who might be in a relationship, is a hard worker, has some experience moving their bodies. It doesn't need to be like some athletic, crazy experience. It's just they're somewhat body aware. And they're stressed. And stress can come from having poor diet, poor movement lifestyle, not enough sleep, all the different factors. But essentially, that person who's like, what, I have this backache. And that's the thing that's holding me back from being healthier, because I know I want to be healthier. I just don't know what to do. Yeah, so that's kind of our target. And what we found we did a big user test this last fall. The two most interesting things, man, and I'll share the nuggets of the secrets because they're just outstanding in my opinion, is that we found that the male demographic that used our app was about 4 to 5 years older than the average female demographic. And I believe through interviewing that it was because the male demographic took longer for their egos to get over the fact that they don't know what they're doing. They're just like, no, man, I'll just keep going to the gym and I'll keep doing my bicep curls and bench press and I'll just live with this back thing that I have, Whereas a lot of the female demographic, whether they were about to have kids or have had a kid or are working really hard or have realized how their body has shifted after stopping their yoga practice or stopping their recreational activities, they were the most hungry to get back into something right away. Like, I'm okay with not knowing, just show me what to do. And if it worked, they trusted it, So power to the women out there for not having as much barriers of their own stuff than the men that we tested. But so that was kind of realization number one. And then the second realization that I think is this universal thing that blew my mind was we found about 20 people who were using the app very consistently. So we got on the phone with all of them and we had about 30-minute conversations. We interviewed them and had a bunch of questions. And none of our questions asked specifically this, but all of them had the same response somewhere woven in, that they had a fundamental belief that something in their body was just the way it is now. So, and we talked about this when I talked to you on the phone like a month ago, is guys 35 would be like, oh, I just have a bad shoulder. Yeah. And I'm like, well, what happened? Like, oh, nothing. I just kind of woke up and it's over the last 5 years, just kind of worse and worse and worse. Like, what are you doing for that? They're like, well, nothing. It's bad. I just have a bad shoulder now. I'm like, so for the rest of your life, you're going to have a bad shoulder. And for a lot of people, it's like mid-back tightness and it's not an acute injury. There's no sharpness. It's just, I got this ache, or I got this knee that's not really happy. And to me, it was like, there is a huge opportunity here to get this person moving specific to that area and improve that dysfunction, whether it's mobility or stability or any of, like, if they lack strength, like it's so prescriptive in nature to the person. But the belief that somebody is just stuck with a physical limitation because they're aging blows my mind.
Yeah.
So that's where we're like, okay, we have something here. We have a product that, we believe is going to make a big impact in this world.
Yeah. It is incredible. And you and I talked in that same conversation about the Louis C.K. example. Remember
Yeah,
this?
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You can say whatever you want about Louis C.K. with his personal endeavors, but the guy's funny. And, I personally resonate with this one skit because it was the shitty ankle, right? So he goes into the doctor, and he's 40 now. And the doctor looks at the x-ray and is like, well, here's the problem. You have a shitty ankle. And he's like, okay, well, what do I do? He's like, well, nothing. That's just the way things are now. You can take some Advil, maybe stretch it a bit. Well, that's it? He's like, yeah, that's it. He's like, well, can't you do surgery? Or, there's all these amazing athletes that you can fix this stuff. He's like, you're not an athlete, right?
Yeah.
He's laughing. He's like, that's just the way it is. And it's funny because I have a shitty ankle, right? And for a while I was like, I was just like, well, I guess that's just me being 40 now, because I watched it and I resonated with so strongly. And it is something that, we just assume as we age. But here's the thing, like, if we live well, with all the modern advances and even the things that are coming down the pipe strongly between, all the different rejuvenation and stem cell and all these things are coming out, we could live 100, 120.
Totally.
So start thinking like that way, like, yeah, my ankle is still tweaked and I'm going to try your app. Absolutely. And get this thing going, see if I can fix it, because it annoys me that I can't run all the time anymore.
Totally.
Process. But like, start thinking like that. It's not, now I'm 42. I don't necessarily have, the expected life expectancy is 76 in America. That's not necessarily true. If you take care of yourself, right?
Totally.
And you do things, we're going to live for a long time. Which presents a whole nother issue globally and universally of what we're going to do with that population. I don't want to get into that now, but it's true. We got to shift our mindset is, you don't have to live with that. It can be fixed at just about any age.
Yeah. And we talk about preventative health to set up ourselves for that, like this continued exploration of how to live longer. And to me, it rolls back to like, how do you feel better today? Like feel good today. And like, that's step one, man. Like, it's not about investing for a future investment. It's like, no, like invest live right now. Do these 5-minute minis that are prescriptive and feel better literally in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like that's the idea,
Yeah.
And like you said, like then you end up finishing a book, or then you end up like learning something new. Then you end up like your body changes and you've got this new area because you're like, oh, I didn't know. Oh, my low back stuff's gone now. And now I've got this thing on my shoulder, but now I'm cleaning that up and allowing people to go live active lifestyles that were, held back because of a shitty ankle.
Yeah. And it's amazing too. I mean, if you just look at 5 minutes, right? And it flies by so quickly in just about any context, except meditation. Sometimes that takes a while. But you almost always end up going over, right? 5 minutes every time.
Totally.
So it's like, if you just set your mind, I'll just do 5 minutes, you'll probably do like 10, 15, maybe.
Totally. Yeah, right? Totally. Well, especially if you start seeing something work, you're like, man, I'll give like 20 minutes to this. Feels great.
Yeah. Yeah. If you feel good with it. It's the same thing. It's like people are like, well, I don't really, especially gym owners, like, well, I don't have time to work out. Well, cool. We'll just go warm up.
Yeah.
Warm up. And they're like, well, I start moving. Be like, all right, well, I feel good. I'll just start doing a whole workout. Right. And there you go.
Totally.
So tell me about, what do you think, what does the next 6 months look like for this app? Because it's probably going to, you're already out there. Where is it currently? Like how many, what are some of the numbers you guys are looking at? And I know you guys have launch partners and all of that, but what does it currently look like? What does the next 6 months look like?
Yeah. I mean, one of the learnings in this whole project is realistic time expectations. And then also how do things grow? In launching from our conception into the store and February 2017 to now, we've had about 6,000 downloads, which we're happy from a beta standpoint. We haven't done any advertising. We've, a couple months ago received funding from Lululemon. They're an equity holder of the company now. And so we have a lot of collaborative launch strategies that we're going to unroll this summer. But the thing that we're most excited about is we looked at our product, and I talked about the moody, edgy color scheme and how we had branded ourselves. And it worked really well 3 years ago when we launched. But we look at the comparative top 5 exercise apps in the space, and there is no difference between ours and the other top 5. We are all copying what Nike's done. Everybody is. It's this loud, bold, really fit person doing some box jump or something. It's like, so that when we shifted our gears a year ago to moving better in these short amounts of times, to really being an enabler to a better movement lifestyle, we didn't shift our branding. And so this next 6 months, what we did is, after receiving funding, we're totally redeveloping the front end of our app. So the app that people will be using in the store, onto something called Flutter, which is just a beautiful system that makes the experience really seamless. It's a lot more, customized and nice for the user experience. And then we decided, we got pitched this redesign concept of living in this sort of animation space, which I was very, very hesitant to go in towards. But the concept was we're doing something different. We have to look different. We have to be a different experience for people to understand that this is something that will change the way that this industry is placed. And so when we're launching our new product in July, and it'll be in the store in the second week of July. And it's called Movr, Movr. People can go download now to kind of see how it's going to change in the very short future. But we've created this universe, and we've created these avatars that are very human-centric in what is like line illustration. So everybody can relate with the shape, but there's no comparison to, I'm not that body type, or that's too fit, or that person's too aspirational, I can never get there. Because right away, that was a barrier I noticed in the fitness industry in Vancouver. Is you go into some gyms and everyone's got their makeup on and they're perfectly fit already. Feels pretty crappy for someone who's got, sore back.
Yeah.
So we're shifting gears in that world, and I'm super excited for the new product. Our website's going to be live in about a month, and it's just, we're going to be reintroducing movement in a universe that's completely new. And then tying that back to a very educational approach about how to do the things really well. And that will be human-based coaching. So videos that are coachable moments with human coaches. So that's kind of the product side. And then our launch stuff, like I said, we're going live in July. We're really going to focus on local events here in Vancouver. We're going to have a strong presence at Lululemon's half marathon, the Seaweeds in Vancouver, which is a huge event for the city, and a just crazy successful event for that company. They have so many people interested in signing up, and people come from all over the world to run in it. And it's very much a weekend festival. And then we have some internal activations we're going to be doing with them. And ultimately, man, now, in receiving seed funding, we're going to be going for a Series A financing over the summer, and hoping to really push our product out to the world come September, October, November, after a good, usability testing of being in the world throughout the summer. Yeah.
What's the revenue model for you guys? Is it subscription based? Is it ad based? How are you guys monetizing?
Yeah, so currently there's no monetization of the product. What we did is about a year and a half ago, so the 6 months leading up to this, let's improve movement quality, we put this thing into the app called Modules. And it's just our way of saying programs. We're like, okay, we're going to build programs. And at the time, we weren't heading towards external funding. So we said, we're going to go to events, and we're going to build programs for these events and running programs, and sell the event a spot. So the event, it'll cost them $1,000. And then they'll share it with all their runners or their, gymnasts or their team. And they'll all have this custom program just that's for their team. So we spent like 3 months of development time. We designed it. We put it out. We landed a couple events, but I realized really quickly that I didn't believe in it enough to get excited about getting on calls to sell it to people. And it wasn't clear enough what we were doing. There's so many systems and softwares out there that do that already so much better than we were doing. So now with this new version that's going to launch, we're stripping that right out. Somebody can go in and download the app and get the prescribed minis, the body analysis, and something that we call the quick start or the workout builder. And it's very situational, prescriptive to you, where you can build a workout. And those things are free, and as it stands, in my opinion, will always be free. And then once we kind of see that, we want to onboard that person into the product and say, you're using it every day. Now let's put modules or programs back into the app and allow someone to sign up for a 2 to 4 week, almost like a course. It is a program. You would be doing something every day, but it's trending towards a goal or an outcome. So it's like, let's fix your ankle and then reteach you how to squat. So then by the end of the 4 weeks, like, man, like I've never goblet squatted, and felt so good. My hips, my core, my ankles, like the whole show, it's unlocked and I'm feeling great. And that will be something that we're looking at creating revenue around when we put it back in, and that will be this fall.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's so funny because I love it because it never feels like we actually have arrived anywhere, but there's so many little victories along the way. It's like, having a clear vision. It's been a passion project that has turned into something that I truly believe will help humans, help people that are. What's cool about it in my mind is that it's going to help people who are already active, but more importantly, help so many people access the world of movement that aren't, that have the blockers of, well, I don't know what to do, or I don't have time, or I got this thing. And we want to smash those barriers down.
Yeah.
And I believe that we can, and we will.
And that's the future, right? And that's the beauty of what, honestly, why I stay in the fitness and health space is because I see now all the tools we have to access the other 80% that don't do the normal gym fitness thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's tremendous. Like we can, we don't have
Totally.
to force gym memberships down anyone's throat anymore, right? It's like we
Totally.
can go meet people where they are. And, stuff like what you're doing and countless other people that I get to talk to, that's the thrill, right? I talk about this number every day, right? At least 80% of people don't go to gyms or have personal trainers. On a global scale, that's 99%. So there's 99% of the world's population that we can now get to and help them create and just make a bigger impact. And that's the excitement of things like this is really figuring out. One question for you too, that I didn't ask earlier is how many hours have you put into development of this app? Give people an idea. People are like, I'll develop an app.
Oh, I'll start a project, man. I'll just do this thing. Man, so I think it's tough for me to quantify because even to this day, I still work with clients in the studio and I still learn stuff about the body that we're trying to put into the system of the app. So it's like when I look at the total hours of time spent with clients and then on this project, it's like the high thousands, man. Like I got to be approaching it's the last 5 years of my entire life. The only other thing that I've done well with my time is meet my partner and convince her to marry me in a couple of weeks. And that was tenuous at best at times because she's like, Aaron, you're giving too much time to this project.
Yeah.
I got to say, without attaching an hour figure to it, I think like the first 3 years of the project, I made $0. I asked my parents for $50,000. I got about $10,000 from an Indiegogo campaign that totally flopped. We got a quarter of the ask money that we wanted. I spent about $50,000 out of my own pocket. And then I asked my parents for more of a loan before we secured this funding. And the personal risk I took was investing 3 years of my life, financially stretching myself, but never once did I stop believing that this thing was going to go. because it just didn't go away, man. Like, and the biggest thing for me is as my lifestyle shifted into something that I was so passionate about. It sounds lame, but I'm proud of it, is if I didn't have anything to do on the weekend, it'd be like Friday night. Hey, that's a free night. I got energy. I'm going to sit and I'm going to like conceptualize what this next piece of the product is, or the project is, or how we could activate, or who I should talk to next week. And I loved it, you know? So I think when I talk to other people about something that they want to do in the world, it's like, how much do you believe in it? How much are you willing to put in terms of time into it? And no one else is going to do it for you.
Mm-mm.
So I mean, go do it, but don't think anybody is going to do anything for you, or that it'll be easy. You know, just be passionate about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No one's gonna save you. No one's going to discover you. You gotta make it happen. You know,
Totally, man.
That's a big thing too. You know, people try to throw a lot out there into the world, but you got to look internally and just start creating. And I think what's really interesting about your scenario too, which is something that drives a lot of people, is you got to have your big idea, right? This just
Totally
huge, scary, big thing that you want to do. And everything else that you do, if it's aligned will make that happen. Your gym is a testing ground for the thoughts that you have that go into the app. It's going to influence all of that. So everything you do aligns with your big, scary idea, right?
Oh man, 100%.
That's the beautiful thing. If those things are out of alignment, if you're disjointed at any given point, it's going to be a lot tougher. But if you can make all those things align to where you want to go with your big, scary idea, then things start to happen. So hats off to you, man. It's really cool to hear. Your story is great. So where do people get the app? Where do people find you? Where's all that stuff happen?
Man, I could just keep talking to you for so long about all this stuff. I have so many thoughts. My one last thought on that, I'll answer that question, but my last thought on that is like this whole thing with Lululemon was like an idea 3 years ago that we sat down and we're like, wouldn't it be cool if one day we got funding for Lululemon? And that concept, that idea was so scary and so like an impossibility, because we didn't even have anything. We were just talking about what we wanted to do. And it's like you said, I think you have that North Star, and then it's like that North Star keeps evolving. But when it becomes reality, like, man, it is persistence, it's passion, and it's, you know, believing that you're doing something that's going to help people. That was the right recipe for success for us. The actual app, it's in the App Store for both iOS and Android. So you can go into the App Stores, just type down Movr. It's the first app you'll see, and just click download right now. You'll still get the body analysis. You can go check out how your body's moving, and then get some prescribed minis, which is just 5-minute fixes. And you know, if people are listening before we have the new product live, I encourage them to go check it out, because it'll be evolving so much in the next couple months. And they'll definitely be early adopters to something that I hope that you and I are having a podcast in a year and we're like, man, this thing is blowing up, you know? So it's being shared all over the place. And I believe that. I think like the future innovations team at Lululemon believes that. And you know, the proof is in sort of the continual success of the studio and the people who have been using the product. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely be having, when this thing blows up even more, we'll get you back on. We'll talk about a little bit more what that's like. So yeah, man, thanks for coming on, Aaron. This is exciting stuff. Looking forward to it.
I so appreciate the time, man. It's a pleasure. And I hope that anybody who's listening gets maybe it helps a couple people who are listening as well.
Yeah, I think it will. Right on. Well, Aaron, thank you, man. Thanks everybody for listening. That's a wrap. Hey, fitness fans, don't leave yet. It's your host, Eric Malzone, and I have a quick favor to ask. Actually, 3 favors. So, number 1, if you're a fan of our show, I asked you to do something that takes under 3 minutes. Go to iTunes, please, and subscribe to our show. Please, please, please. It means so much to us. It's so important. And then give us a favorable review. We would really, really appreciate it. And I can't tell you how much it means and helps us out. So it only takes 2 minutes of your day, and it means a lot to us. So please do that. Number 2, go to our YouTube channel, our Fitness Marketing Alliance, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel there. Number 3, if you like this episode or any of the episodes that we've released, share it on social. That's huge. That's a big deal for us. And we put a lot of work into these episodes, trying to give you great, actionable content for the fitness industry. So that would mean a lot. And that's it. So we have some big plans coming up for this show. I'll be talking about that in the next couple episodes. But thank you so much for listening. It means so much. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I love to hear from everybody. Eric, ERIC at fitnessmarketingalliance.com.